Welcome back to Bible and Blues, where we are just one step ahead of nothing because, we're not technically advanced, but that's okay. But you're here with me. I think I have things set up. I think we're okay to go. We're in that 70s basement in big screen, which is actually one of my favorite locations. It has some fun things in here that kind of remind me of home to a certain extent and your childhood, things that, that 70s show. You ever watch that 70s show? Things went kind of south with some of the people there, but Danny Masterson, for one, that went really bad for him. He made some bad choices in life. But then there's, Ashton Kutcher did a really good job. There's so many good people that came out of that show. It was a neat show. That really covered a lot of, us Gen X childhood kind of aspects. So anyway, I don't want to get deep into that because right now we're actually talking about John chapter 18, where Jesus is arrested. And I remember several chapters ago, for some reason I had in my head that it was only 17 chapters to John. That's not what I was talking about. I did not know what I was talking about clearly. And who cares? Is that a problem? That is no issue. So without further ado, John chapter 18. When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed the Kidron Valley. On the other side, there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. Now Judas, who betrayed him, knew the place because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. We're seeing the big reveal time here. It really is kind of scary if you think about it. Judas knew where he would probably be because he was often there. He often went there with the disciples. So that's where he's like, okay, we're going to meet him here. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said. And Judas the traitor was standing there with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." That happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. "I have not lost one of those you gave to me." So the interesting thing here, where in verse 5, "I am he," and Judas the traitor was standing there with him. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. I'd like to dig deeper into that at some point in time. I think there's that's not something I've actually read before. But as when you're reading the Bible, every time you reread it, it comes up different. Things come up again that catch your eye and catch your ear. They drew back and fell to the ground. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" The detachment of soldiers with his commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus. They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. So this is Caiaphas' idea that it was better that Jesus would die than to get the Romans in there, because that's what they were fearing, was that the Romans would come and trounce on them because of this this upstart. So Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus because this disciple was known to the high priest. He went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. "You aren't one of this man's disciples, are you?" she asked Peter. He replied, "I am not." That's one. It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire they had made to keep warm. Peter was also standing with them, warming himself. Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. "I have spoken openly to the world," Jesus replied. "I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said." Jesus, at no point in time was Jesus in hiding when he was speaking words. I mean, it wasn't until the last few chapters here in John where he was speaking privately to the disciples more, and it was during his last day. And this is he was not hiding. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. "Is this the way you answer the high priest?" he demanded. "If I said something wrong," Jesus replied, "testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke truth, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was standing there, warming himself. So they asked him, "You aren't one of his disciples too, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." That's 2. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow. If you were Simon Peter, you're Peter, and you had said you would lay down your life for Jesus. You had told him that. These are the words that you said earlier, and you were so passionate, you truly felt it, and yet here you are, denying that you're one of his disciples. Why are you doing this? What is that? And that is a failing that's in all of us. A level of not wanting to get in trouble, of fear, of things like that. Do we deny Jesus in our lives? Do we deny when people come up to us and ask us, do we or talk to us in general? Are we bold enough to say we are a disciple of Jesus? Peter was not. He wasn't. He denied it 3 times, and at that moment, a rooster began to crow. That was when Simon Peter probably just fell apart right there. He knew what he had done. He knew he had done it the other 2 times. And when he did it this time and the rooster began to crow, this is what Jesus had foretold to him. It's such an incredible moment. So then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman emperor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace, because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." Jeez. "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. This isn't going to do." They want him dead, remember. They don't want, and they can't do that. We have no right to execute anyone. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked him. "Or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, does that sound familiar? With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him, but it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" They shouted back, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. Here ends the reading of the Lord. Thanks be to God. This is Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. They are accusing Jesus of starting an uprising. Their fear is that Jesus was going to start an uprising, so they chose somebody who had actually taken part in an uprising in order to sacrifice Jesus I can't seem to get out of my head some of the stuff going on today with this. I'm not going to get involved in politics right now, but just the whole thing going on just seems. I see a lot of things, but I'm not saying that anybody but Jesus is Jesus. Never accuse me of that, please. And so with this, this is a very important time. And Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." So he's saying that his kingdom is out of this world. Now Pilate doesn't understand, much as a lot of people didn't understand. But now my kingdom is from another place. So he's going back to reign in heaven. And that's where he's headed, and and we should be joyous about that. But going through this part is emotionally tough for me. Knowing what's coming, what's coming, is so difficult. No, not him. Give us Barabbas. Give us a known person uprising, and free him. But take this man, who has done nothing wrong, who Pilate says has done nothing wrong. So this is his compromise here, and I'm just, like I said, I get emotional on this one. This is the time when Jesus he's in his last hours at this point, and he's about to go through a world of pain that today we just don't understand. Okay. So we're going to be getting into that tomorrow. God bless. Thank you very much for coming here with me, going on this journey. The journey is not done. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.